Just before we move on to other layers that I added, let's talk for a second about the tempo. So, as I mentioned, I can change this tempo at any time in the future because it's captured digitally. Everything is recorded as MIDI right now, and it will all snap to new tempos, which is handy. But I still did deliberately choose this tempo. And one of the reasons I chose this tempo is it's not so slow to feel plodding, for lack of a better way. It doesn't feel stiff, but it definitely feels more ominous than it would at a higher tempo. So there's a brooding kind of quality. Let's look at the next layer. I laid them out in the order I created them here for the purposes of showing you guys. And this is some drums. Try to keep it subtle. This is all using Maschine. I like that little whap. So I have a few layers here. And some of the layers aren't coming in until later. This is the main one, which, I don't know, there's a name to this kit, but it must have already had the whap sound built in. Is it this one? No. Anyway, it's somewhere in this sample pack, but it might be this thing. Yeah, that's the one. Don't know what that actually is. It doesn't really matter. I don't really worry about what each sound is supposed to be, because in a lot of cases I do mess with the ADSR of an individual sound to capture what I want about it. Let's see if I did that on this kick. Yeah, so I only have a certain amount of sustain on the sound, like about 58% of the full sound. And there's an attack. Now you can hear some of the other layers coming in. This is actually a normal sounding kit, but because this is pretty heavily filtered after, which I will show you, it's pretty subtle what ends up coming out. And you can see, for example, if I go to the snare, if I was to turn off the ADSR, which has a pretty low sustain, it's mostly just about crack. I'm just getting the tip of the sound. Well, I think I would have to navigate back to a section where that's playing more loudly. So let's say over here, if I just switch this to straight one shot, well, that's the sound. I'm really just capturing a piece of it, just to keep it punchy, but also useful. And this is the same pattern here. I have a rim shot here that's coming out. Well, it says it's a snare, sorry. It's just a different snare sample on the backbeat. But these loops are all standard bar long loops, and they come and go. And the tone of them changes a lot based on the plugins afterwards. So let me go to this section where the layers are all playing together, put it on a little loop. And I'm going to show you what this Decimort does. I use this a great deal on a lot of different tracks. And it's a way to keep, it's obviously it says it's a high quality bit crusher. It's a bit crusher sort of, it's giving me the sort of MPC crunch type idea. I love those kind of sounds because I was young when the DJ Shadow and some of the DJ stuff was very new, and those sounds always had this artificial crunch that was coming from the sampler itself. And that's no different here. So this is pretty aggressively filtered right now. So if I completely turn it off, this is going to sound night and day different. But that's definitely not what I'm going for. Now, here's the thing. I have to work into a device like this. This is a very good point. I need to have this on. If I want this sound, I need to have this on, and I need to manipulate everything all the way down to all the individual sounds of the hits and the attack and the decay and everything in Maschine, all the effects that would be in Maschine, because I'm sure I'm using effects here and there on certain sounds. This one has a reverb on it. It looks like maybe that what came in the sample pack, maybe that came in the particular instrument like that, and I just didn't change it, because some of them do come like that. But you know, like even on the group or whatever. Okay, so I have a transient. I'm adding transient on this secondary drum group. The whole thing has a bit of swing on it. I tend to like a little bit of swing, and I don't have that's actually weird, because that has 1% swing, but the whole project has 8% swing, which is kind of weird. I guess it's just cumulative. But everything always has a bit of swing for me. Not a ton sometimes. Sometimes it's very small, but it's always there. And these drum hits, for example, this snare part, it's really not precisely in place. And there's a lot of accenting going on. So if maybe I can turn this off and this, and let's just solo this. So you can see the velocities down there. They're all over the place. And there's these extra kicks. Boom. Which just, you can hear it there. But it's not overpoweringly loud. I tend to have my main kick, whatever that happens to be in this case. It's some kind of EEPROM semi-digital situation. Probably some vintage thing. Even though I have a couple extra kicks here. I have an offbeat. They're there, but they're not very loud. It adds a little flair in there, like a little push, but it's really subtle, and that's on purpose. I try to, like I mentioned on piano samples, I really try to keep the downbeats, the central beats that I want people to feel. I tend to keep those louder, but I can also sometimes do the opposite, where if I have a really funky beat where, the accenting is really important, I might just add a gentle, straight beat under the bottom, so that something is pulling most people back to a rhythmic center. But for a lot of people, they might not need that, and they can just have the funky beat going. But yeah, this Decimort, I love this thing, tons of character. And this jitter knob, for example. So I'm going to turn that up for a second. And you can hear the texture that's going to add, but I've got it exactly where I want it right now. Oh. That's a little disturbing, right? And that's all coming out of the sampler, and we're at 12 bits here. The 12 bits might be a bit hissy if I wasn't filtering this. So I don't think I'm automating I am automating the filter cutoff, so I'm gonna have to pull it up down here. But let's say I pull this filter up, you can hear the tone a little bit more. Right, and let me turn this off. Okay, obviously a very different volume as well. But you get the idea. That's unfortunate. I can't unautomate this. So it won't be exactly like the final track anymore. But then I have this Kush audio Silica compressor. I love their stuff. And this is adding a little bit of crack, and it's kind of pushing down any of the rumble that might exist. I don't have a high pass filter, so I'm letting it act on the rumble, and it's also adding some distortion to the sound. So I'm going to turn it off and show you. Use the bypass button. Well, there's a noticeable volume difference, so that's not easy to interpret. It definitely adds a little bit of crack. So let's see that with the track now. Okay, so this was my second layer. I think we're at a different level of filter here than we were before, because it just feels different. Okay, the next layer I added was the bass. So let's talk about that.